There are places where the earth breathes, where caves whisper and rivers vanish into darkness, and the wind carries voices that do not belong to the living. In those places, the ancients of Mesoamerica believed the world turned inside out, that beneath the roots of the mountains stretched the true heart of creation. They called it by many names: Mictlan, Xibalba, Metnal, the place of fright. But all those words pointed toward one truth, that the realm of the dead was not an end. It was the mirror beneath existence. The Maya said it lay deep under sacred cenotes, where spirits entered through water and re-emerged as rain. The Aztecs spoke of 9 levels of descent, each a trial that stripped the soul of its memories, each guarded by beasts of smoke and shadow. To reach peace, one must surrender the very self that once walked in sunlight. Yet to them this was not despair. Death was not punishment. It was continuation, the slow unfolding of the same cosmic rhythm that gave life its pulse. As the maize dies in the soil before rising again in harvest, so too does the human spirit descend, only to bloom in the unseen. They built their temples not as monuments to power, but as maps of the cosmos. Each step of a pyramid mirrored the layers of the underworld below. Each stairway downward, a path toward memory. Each offering, a voice calling across the thin veil between worlds. At the edge of night, shamans gathered in caves to breathe the dust of crushed obsidian, their chants spiraling through smoke, their eyes fixed upon the flicker of the underworld flame. They spoke to gods older than the sun, to those who shaped the balance between decay and renewal, between silence and the first sound of dawn. In the stories carved on stone, the journey beneath the earth was not a fall, but a return, a reunion with the womb of the world, where darkness was not evil, but fertile. It was the place of waiting, the chamber where all beginnings sleep. And so, when a warrior fell, his body burned or buried with jade in his mouth, his soul was believed to walk downward through mountains of glass, past rivers of knives and winds that tore away flesh and fear alike. Each pain was a purification, each scar a step closer to remembrance. For in Mesoamerica, to die was not to lose oneself. It was to recover the truest part of being. The gods below did not devour. They received. And beneath the weight of centuries, that belief still echoes, that the underworld is not hell, but the hidden heartbeat of the earth. In the darkness beneath the mountains, the air is still, and yet it listens. There, where roots touch the bones of forgotten kings, the lords of the underworld keep their silent court. Among them stands Mictlantecuhtli, his skull crowned with gold and jade, his ribs adorned with feathers of night. To gaze upon him was to see the truth of existence stripped bare, the laughter of life, the calm of decay. His queen, Mictecacihuatl, walked beside him, her eyes as deep as cenotes, her voice as soft as ash. She welcomed the souls who had crossed the final river, not with cruelty but with recognition, for she knew their journey, the fear, the surrender, the forgetting, and greeted them as a mother might greet her sleeping children. To the people above, death was not a monster to flee from. It was a god to understand, and the gods themselves were not distant. They lived within each offering, each pulse of the drum, each shadow flickering against stone. During the long nights of ritual, priests descended into the chambers below temples, carrying torches that smoked with resin and blood. They sang the names of the underworld lords, not to summon but to honor them, to remind the earth that they, too, were bound by the same circle of renewal. Each god ruled not a hell, but a mystery. There was Xolotl, the dog who guided souls through rivers and flame, his eyes burning like twin embers in the dark. There was Apuk, the skeletal jester of the Maya, whose laughter could shake mountains, mocking death until it forgot its sorrow. And there was Sizun, whose steps made the ground tremble, a reminder that even chaos had its role in creation. To worship them was not to seek power, it was to remember humility, because in the eyes of these gods every soul, from ruler to beggar, walked the same path of bones. The offerings left in their honor, feathers, obsidian, maize, and hearts still warm from sacrifice, were not tributes to appease anger. They were acts of exchange. Give to the earth what the earth has given. Return fire to the flame. Return blood to the river that carried the first dawn. In this understanding, the Maya and the Aztecs found balance. They feared not the gods of the underworld, for those deities were guardians, not destroyers. They kept the threshold sealed, ensuring that life above and silence below would never consume one another. And in the whispering dark, between candlelight and smoke, the ancients believed they could still hear the breath of Mictlantecuhtli, slow, patient, eternal, keeping the pulse of the world steady. When a human heart ceased to beat, it was not an ending. It was the beginning of the longest walk. The breath that once filled the lungs became wind. The warmth that once moved the body turned to a faint shimmer, a soft glow wandering between night and memory. According to the elders, the soul did not fall, it descended. It began a pilgrimage across the invisible landscapes that lay beneath the earth, where every mountain was made of time and every river carried forgotten names. The first step was surrender, leaving behind the weight of flesh. The second was remembrance, knowing who you were and letting it fade. Only then could the soul move forward into the world of echoes. In the codices, the Aztecs wrote of Mictlan's 9 levels, each a trial, each more sacred than the last. There was the wind of obsidian knives, cutting away the residue of the past. The river of blood, to be crossed only with the aid of a dog buried long ago, a companion whose loyalty transcended death. There were mountains that crushed together, and fields of shifting smoke where the soul learned to see without eyes. No punishment awaited the traveler, only purification. Every obstacle was a lesson. That life was never owned, only borrowed. Those who reached the 9th realm found not fire, but stillness, the vast, silent chamber of Mictlan, where Mictlantecuhtli waited with a hand of bone and a heart of gold. He asked nothing. He took nothing. He simply looked, through the soul, through the story, through time itself, and saw whether the traveler had understood the truth, that all suffering was transformation, and all endings were returns. Among the Maya, the journey was different in path but the same in spirit. Their heroes, the hero twins, descended into Xibalba not to die, but to master death itself. Through trials of fire, laughter, and deception, they defeated the lords of decay. By embracing their own mortality, they showed that courage is not the denial of death. It is the art of walking beside it, unafraid. To the ancients, the afterlife was not a place, it was a rhythm. A pulse that moved through stars, through rain, through bones. The living and the dead danced to the same silent drum, their steps echoing in opposite worlds. Even now, when thunder rolls across the valleys of Mexico and Guatemala, some say it is the sound of souls passing through the final gate, a reminder that the road to eternity lies not above, but beneath our feet. Every flame ever lit in Mesoamerica was a whisper to the other side. When smoke rose from temples or drifted from a single candle, it carried messages, prayers, gratitude, promises, to those who walked in silence beneath the world. The ancients did not fear the dead. They spoke to them, fed them, and built their homes with open doors between worlds. A grave was not a place of mourning, but of conversation. An altar was not a decoration, it was a bridge. In villages and cities, people placed maize, obsidian, cacao, flowers, and blood upon stone. Each offering represented a fragment of life returned to its source. The earth had lent them breath, so they lent it memory. They believed that if the living forgot, the balance would break, and even the gods would fade into hunger. Centuries later, when empires fell and foreign faiths arrived, the rhythm of the underworld did not die, it changed its mask. The Spanish priests saw the altars and the candles, and where they expected demons, they found devotion. And so, what could not be destroyed became something new. A day not of sorrow, but of reunion. Dia de los Muertos. Every marigold petal scattered along the ground became a trail of sunlight, guiding souls back to the warmth of their homes. The scent of copal incense curled upward like memory itself, and families whispered names into the night, so that no spirit would wander alone. Skulls were painted not as mockery, but as celebration, a way to teach the living that death wears many faces, and none of them are to be feared. The colors, crimson, orange, violet, gold, were the spectrum of existence, a reminder that darkness is only the other half of light. And as candles flicker in cemeteries across Mexico and Guatemala, as laughter mingles with tears, the boundary between life and death thins once more, just as it did in the ancient temples, because deep beneath the festivals and songs, beneath sugar and marigolds, there still beats the same sacred heart that once throbbed in the pyramids of Teotihuacan and the jungles of Palenque. The people may have changed, but their promise to the dead has not. Each year they whisper, "Return to us, eat with us, live through us." And the earth answers, softly, through wind and candlelight, "I never left." The ancients said that every breath belongs to both worlds, that when you exhale, a fragment of your soul slips into the dark, and returns with the next sunrise. Life and death were never opposites to them. They were twin rivers flowing in the same direction, meeting somewhere beneath the mountains, where gods and mortals drink from the same stream. To descend into the underworld was to remember. It was to walk backward through time, to the moment before birth, before form, before forgetting. For the Maya and Aztecs, death stripped away illusion, revealing what had always been hidden, that every ending is simply a doorway. The priests said the underworld had no light of its own, and yet it shimmered, because it reflected the stars above. The darkness was not empty. It was full of beginnings. Every buried seed, every fading ember, was a promise that nothing is ever truly gone. Even now, centuries after the last temple fell silent, the myths still move through the land like blood through stone. They hide in the rustle of sugarcane, in the thunder that rolls across valleys, in the slow beating of drums during night festivals. Each sound, each flame, each scent of marigold is a memory of that covenant between humanity and eternity. Scientists may call them stories. Historians may trace their evolution, but the people who still light candles for their ancestors know the truth that cannot be measured. That remembrance itself is sacred magic. To remember the dead is to feed the universe. To speak their names is to remind the gods that we still exist. In the silence beneath the soil, Mictlantecuhtli and Mictecacihuatl still keep their vigil. They no longer demand hearts or blood, only memory. For every soul remembered becomes a light, and every light returns to the sky. So when you stand beneath the stars, know this: each one above you was once a flame below. Each pulse of light was a breath once taken, a story once lived, a promise once whispered to the gods of the earth. And though the temples have crumbled and the languages changed, the myth remains unbroken. For the realm beneath the world was never truly beneath. It is here within us, in the heartbeat that answers the ancient rhythm of the soil. The ancients did not believe in death. They believed in returning. And perhaps that is what eternity truly is. Not a distant afterlife, but the endless act of becoming again.